Hey guys, so today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different and I'm actually going to react to a little bit of politics. I'm going to be reacting to Matt Walsh's What is a Woman documentary, which is currently on the Daily Wire. Before I start, I'm just going to say my biases. I like Matt Walsh. I watch his show somewhat consistently. I think he's funny. And when it comes to this issue of transgender and transitioning children, I lean to the right. So I wanted to get my biases out of the way just so y'all know, and hopefully we can have a constructive conversation about it in the comment sections. Here I go. Here's a clip.
What we do in gender studies is not just reduce gender to what psychologists might call individual differences, but rather thinking about gender, and that's not women and man, but gender as a social form, something that kind of infuses itself into virtually all aspects of social life.
So basically, what he's saying is that gender has has basically led to some people being in some aspects of society and others being in others. So I guess that would be like the traditionally female roles of cooking, cleaning, being caregivers. However, I wouldn't argue that those are traditional roles. Instead, those are the roles that often go with women because they're the ones who look after children historically, while the men are the ones working out in the fields or they're the ones hunting and gathering. And that all comes back to our primal instincts that we developed through evolution. So it's almost like a natural feeling, but he's arguing that it's a social feeling.
Talk about that then. Uh, I guess we should start with we've got gender and sex, right?
Yeah.
What's the difference between the two? Is there a difference?
I saw that in your questions and I thought, my goodness, this is what we spend an entire semester kind of thinking through. But what we tend to think about in the social sciences today is that sex refers to a set of biological characteristics and gender is a social construct or category.
See, this is where you lose me, and I do not think this is the case. I think sex and gender are essentially the same thing. You're born with what they call an assigned sex, but I think that's truly what you are, unless you have gender dysphoria, which would make you somewhat mentally ill, according to psychologists for frankly the past 100 years. But I guess I'll let him explain it a bit more.
What I think is often misleading about that characterization is allowed to be sort of messy and complicated. But in that framing, when you split them up into these wholly discrete constructs, studies scholars, and really more specifically people who study gender and sex, we're not talking about sexuality right now, in the kind of academic universe that I travel in is that we...
Okay, I feel like I'm back in college listening to one of my liberal professors just ranting about nonsense. This is so true. They like to use these very sophisticated words to make themselves sound smarter and more intelligent. If you've ever been to an academic conference, that is literally all it is, and it is so frustrating that they could use such more simplistic language to get their point across. And frankly, more people would follow them. But there's always this elitist part of academia, and this professor's completely showing this elitist aspect with his just overuse of words and over explaining everything when frankly it should be very, very simple, concrete stuff. And that's the best way to learn, in my opinion.
We see how deeply gendered ideas, cultural ideas about masculinity and femininity, maleness and so femaleness, both in humans and in lots of other animals.
So are gender and sex two different things, or?
Well, I think that they both are and they aren't. I'm comfortable saying that.
That's all you had to say. You didn't have to explain a 20-minute rant, man.
Gender and sex are two different constructs, but they're deeply intertwined with each other.
There you go.
We're talking about gender and sex, and there's a lot of controversies there. If we're talking about a trans woman has all of the male physical characteristics, so would that not be a male then? Couldn't we plainly say this person is a male?
That's a male, yes. If you have the male body parts, you're a male. I don't understand how this is so complicated and why there's so much debate behind this.
Well, I guess it's like, why are you asking the question? I think I want to understand sort of why that's so important. So if someone tells
just
you...
to sort of understand reality, you know?
Well, I mean, I think when someone tells you who they
I love how the professor pushes back with, why do you want to know the answer to that? He's trying to do a documentary, and you're a college professor, supposedly an expert on this field. You should be explaining everything to him concisely and very well, but he's struggling to get through this interview. It's hilarious.
they are, you should believe them. So if a person says that they're a woman or they're a man, then that's them telling you their gender is. I'm not so sure what social interactions would have to do with maleness or femaleness that would
Well,
be.
I'm not even talking about social context. I'm just trying to start by getting to the truth, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really uncomfortable with that language of like getting to the truth again.
What is uncomfortable about this? This should not be controversial, and even you need genders because we have stuff like female locker rooms, different bathrooms, you have different sports. This seems like such a simplistic thing, but once you start blurring the lines, like we're gonna not have female sports anymore. You might as well just get rid of them at this point. But this guy, he says he's not comfortable with this language. What is offensive and about the questions that he's talking about right now?
In social life,
Why is that uncomfortable?
because that it sounds actually deeply transphobic to me. And
truth?
if you keep probing, we're gonna stop the interview.
If I probe about what the truth is?
You keep invoking the word truth, which is condescending and rude.
What a liberal snowflake that he can't even listen to the questions, which are frankly pretty reasonable questions.
I'm saying to you,
How is the word truth condescending and rude?
why don't you tell me what your truth is? And you're walking on 30 seconds more of thin ice before I get up.
What my truth is? Well, I don't think I really have a
My lord, what a little elitist jerk. That he's just trying to ask you basic interview questions that I frankly think that he sent in before the interview, so these shouldn't be a surprise to him. So I love how on this issue, whenever you push back a little bit, people just get so offended and they refuse. They go into a shell. It just proves that they can't defend this. This is an undefendable position.
truth. I think that there's just the truth, like the reality. And so we should begin by trying to figure out what the reality is.
Yeah.
And why are you concerned with when someone else tells you that they're a man, or even if they use the word male, why are you concerned with not believing them?
Well, you keep bringing it back to, how do you respond in a social situation? But,
That's what I do. I'm a social scientist.
Well, right, but we're in a university. This is a place of understanding truth, isn't it? Or
Absolutely. We
But the
pursue
truth-
truth, and I'm a
So-
social scientist, and that's what I
well,
do.
you just said the truth is transphobic.
That you would say if you're saying the truth is
He has a point. You're basically not even identifying to the question, and I think this is insane that you can't just answer what basic questions are that Matt Walsh is asking.
that I get to say you're not a man, show me your genitalia, that's transphobic.
No, I don't want to see anybody's genitalia. I just mean someone can make a statement about themselves that could be untrue. Like, for example, if I were to say that I'm a black man, would you accept that, or would you be skeptical?
Are you black? Are you African American? Are you biracial?
This guy, instead of just agreeing that that is an untrue statement, that you can't just call yourself whatever you want to be, he's instead asking, like, are you? Perhaps you are African American. No, the point is that you can't just make stuff up about yourself and expect society to go along with it. That's the point Matt's trying to make. But instead, this idiot college professor, and this just proves the idiots that are in academia, he's just asking him, why? You might be. Let me dive deeper into that and see if you actually are. Instead of just saying, no, you're kind of full of it. You're not an African American.
I don't think so.
Well, you don't look that, and I don't think it doesn't sound like that's a genuine statement of who you are.
Okay, so that's my point. I could make a statement about who I am that's incorrect.
Of course, I think it's well established that human beings can lie, yes.
They can lie, but apparently they can't lie about their gender identity, according to this professor. That's essentially what he's saying. So if a man, biological man, wants to sneak into a woman's restroom, he can do it without basically, if he just says, I'm a woman now. But that's the point Matt's trying to get across, that people can lie about this stuff, and there can be things that aren't the truth. Like even a parent pushing a 10-year-old girl who happens to like sports to being a boy, that can be untrue.
Or not even lie. I mean, I could just be mistaken.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Uh,
Sure where you're going.
I guess this all comes back, this all comes down to really one question. Especially women, gender and sexuality studies. So what is a woman?
Why do you ask that question?
This man, sorry, I'm assuming he's a man, has a PhD in gender studies, and he cannot answer what a woman is. He is asking him, we're doing a little reverse, like, what do you think it means? He's the same thing he did when Matt Walsh said that he's an African American. This is pathetic. Just give a definition. I'm sure it's going to be someone who identifies as a woman. That's fine. That's at least a definition, but what are they identifying as? You'd think that this man could come up with this, considering he's a college professor supposedly teaching students.
I just really like to know.
What do you think the answer to that question is?
Well, I'm asking. That's why I came to a college professor.
Exactly. You're an expert.
This is what you do.
What other kinds of answers have you gotten?
This is the most pathetic man I've ever seen in my life. This is absolutely just so pathetic. I can't believe that this man is an academic elite.
A lot of like this where you're not answering, and I've gotten a lot of that. So.
Circular.
I think it's interesting that you say that some of the people you've interviewed have been reluctant to answer it, and I think that has a lot to do with the questions that preceded it and the way that you've conducted yourself in the interview.
How have I conducted?
How did he conduct himself? He just asked basic questions. The thing I love about Matt Walsh is that these people are giving these crazy answers, and he just has a stone cold face the whole time. I love that about him, and I implore him to keep doing it, because these people are just hanging themselves by a rope at this point.
To myself.
Yeah, he's
How do
doing
you
fine.
think you've conducted yourself?
Very well.
You just really don't want to answer the questions, do you?
I came today very willing and enthusiastic about answering questions about women and gender sexuality studies, which is
So
the
you
work
wanted
that I do.
You wanted to answer questions about women's studies, and so the first answer you should be able to provide is what exactly is a woman.
Well,
Exactly.
for me, it's actually a really simple answer, and that's a person who identifies as a woman.
But what are they identifying as?
As a woman.
But what is that?
As a woman.
Do you know what a circular definition is?
This is a circular definition.
I do.
No, you don't.
It's sort of like what you're doing right now, where a woman is a woman.
Because you're seeking what we would call in my field of work an essentialist definition of gender. I think it sounds like you would like me to give.
And as a gender studies professor, you'd think that he could give you that quote unquote essentialist definition of gender. And why does it have to be that way? Why can't you give him your definition and then also an essentialist definition of gender? Why can't you don't even have to say you agree with it. You can just give one or the other based on what other people can argue. You don't have to agree with it, but you should be able to give some sort of a definition of what a woman is.
Give you a set of biological or cultural characteristics that are associated with one gender or the other.
I'm not seeking any type of definition. I'm just seeking a definition.
Yeah, and I gave you one.
Well, now I can say I've been to college.
College is such a waste of money. I regret that I am in a stupid liberal arts college. This is Mark Takano, and he is an openly gay congressman, and he represents some district in California.
Speaking out against transphobia at the source and supporting the trans community by getting the Equality Act signed into law.
Okay.
Congressman, thank you for being here. Thanks for joining us. You are the first member of Congress who's a member of the LGBT community and also a person of Asian descent. you're also a big proponent of the Equality
Nice.
Act.
Yes.
What is the Equality Act? If you were to just summarize it very briefly, I know it does a lot.
The most simplest way to talk about the Equality Act is that it simply amends the 1964 Civil Rights Act to include sexual orientation and gender identity. So, public accommodations.
So sexual orientation, that seems like a pretty reasonable thing to add to the Civil Rights Act. The gender identity part, I struggle to see, but I guess he's going to try to explain it a bit more.
Is one area.
What's a way that someone who's LGBT could be discriminated in public accommodations currently?
Currently, public accommodations is the whole area of, hotels and motels and
Bathrooms and sports teams, is that?
I say bathrooms, sports teams, athletic events.
Let's get into more specific policy.
So other than having gendered sports and gendered bathrooms, I don't really think a hotel or a motel discriminates against people in the LGBT community. You guys might know more about that than I do, but I don't think they do personally.
Issues. There are some women who say, and I've talked to a few who say this. They say, "Hey, I'd like some privacy in the bathroom. I'd
that's
prefer not to
reasonable.
encounter naked penises, frankly." They say even that
You just said the term naked penises in front of a U.S. congressman. That's hilarious.
the penis is a telltale sign that someone is a male. I mean, there are people who kind of really bought into the rumor that only men have penises. What? How do we account for that? How do you respond to that?
He doesn't know how to answer.
Well,
Yeah, he has no idea.
well, what I would say is that
You are the leading congressman on this issue for the Democratic Party, and you can't answer a basic concern of that sometimes women feel uncomfortable when biological men are in the bathroom with them. That is insane. That he didn't even think that this question would pop up. This is how unprepared he is. I've worked in politics, and you have aides who will basically write these questions for you and what the proper answer is, and he has no clue how to answer this basic question that Matt Walsh would ask because he's a right-wing journalist.
most transgender people that I know, and it's a very, I think, distinct minority of people. It is a very, I think,
Get to the point. Stop
we're
stalling.
talking not about a lot of people. I think a person who wants to use a women's bathroom, who identifies as transgender, really does think of themselves as a female. So how we go about trying to, respect their basic right to live, I think will be an important.
This might sound strange, but I've always been a proponent of why don't you just make a third bathroom, if that makes sense. If this is like really a concern, you could make a third bathroom for basically anyone who wants to use it, and that would include transgender people. I don't know why no politician is suggesting that, but that seems like a pretty simple solution.
Important part of this law. And
With the
bathrooms,
law,
well, wait a minute, bathrooms are, where you want to take this conversation instead of the basic right to just life.
I think bathrooms is a pretty reasonable thing to
Is
talk about.
something that I'm kind of mystified that you're kind of not focusing on first, that we're going straight to the controversy over bathrooms. So, you know what, I think this interview is over.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think
He can't answer the question. He just ends the interview. That's insane. Good job, Congress.
this interview is over.
I just had one last question.
No, the interview's over.
We
Please
wanted to
turn off
know
the cameras.
what is a woman?
Please, let's turn off the cameras.
Excuse me. So we're gonna end the interview. If you guys could please pack up and return the office exactly.
I just wanted to know.
Found it.
Okay,
I
thank
came
you.
all this way to know what.
Thank you.
He doesn't know. He's not going to answer what a woman is, and he is United States congressman writing bills that will impact women across the country. That's sad.
They're fair question. I just wanted to know, what is a woman?
And you're not gonna find out.
Wow. Good job, congressional aides. You're doing a great job. He's not going to find out what Takano says about that. If you're in his district, don't vote for that idiot, please. That's at least find. I don't even care if they're a Democrat. Just find someone competent who can answer the questions. Last part of the documentary I'm going to go over is Matt Walsh's interview with a trans wolf. So this should go as everyone should. I don't know. I don't even know how this will go. Here we go.
Now we are seeing kids that are identifying as animals going to school.
What?
And they are purring instead of answering questions.
That's insane. I'm sorry, that's insane. I thought this was just going to be some weirdo who just wanted to identify as a wolf, but now this is an actual thing that's going on in schools. And I'm pretty sure the way the laws are written that it's technically a sexual identity to identify as a wolf or as a dog or a cat, so therefore you can't ask them to stop. That's crazy.
And they meow, and the teachers are not allowed to question it because it's considered a queer identity.
So
Wow.
you have kids that are going to school and they're saying, I'm a cat. Mm-hmm. And the teachers have to
Agree with it?
affirm them as a cat.
Yes, so it's
The
not
schools
just
are
the
like
young ones.
literal.
American public schools right now, ladies and gentlemen. Back in when your parents went to high school, they would have shut this down immediately. And it goes to show that we might need to go to methods such as that again if this starts to become more prevalent. If it's like one weird student in a high school, then who cares? But if this starts to basically exponentially grow, I don't know. Maybe have to go back to old school schooling methods.
Zoos now, basically.
They are.
I am a 27-year-old transgender woman. I am a wolf therian and a member of the furry fandom.
When and how did you discover this inner wolfness?
Probably around.
And the sad part about this is this person's obviously mentally ill. And instead of trying to combat their mental illness, we affirm it with all these crazy gender scientists writing papers and affirming it on TV. And this is just so crazy. This lady, wolf, I don't know what to call him/her, is clearly sick and we can't even help them.
Around age 10 or 11, I was watching an anime about wolves and see the wolf running across the screen, and I'm somehow just intrinsically like, oh, that's me.
Have you spent any time around biological wolves?
Yes.
That sounds dangerous also. What context are you?
So
He says it in such a serious tone. And also, does this person go to like Yosemite National Forest and just run around with the wolves? I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh. This is just funny.
I was a volunteer with a preserve, and I've also visited many wolf preserves.
Are you able to communicate with the wolves?
Am I going to have a conversation with a wolf in the way that I'm communicating you and I? Obviously not.
No,
Am I
of course
going
not.
to read their body language, respond to...
No, you idiot. I can't talk to a wolf like you talk to me, but I can talk to them though. I have like little gestures, and that's how I communicate to the wolves.
appropriately to their behaviors and their nonverbal cues? Yes.
Would you be able to give us an example of this wolf communication?
No. I'm not comfortable doing so.
Yeah, of course you can't, because it's not real.
Okay, all right. I mean, I thought I'd ask anyway.
I've lost faith. I don't know what to say. Like and subscribe if you like this sort of stuff. I feel sad for our country that this is the path we're going on right now, and I truly feel sad for those who are either experiencing gender dysphoria or honestly are having questions about their life, and that's the main thing I want to get from this. So many of you seeing this are at a very fragile age, and if I made fun of you, I'm sorry, but I truly wish that we can help you in some way.